As world leaders converged on Le Bourget in Paris to wrap up a global agreement to curb climate change, a global summit of parliamentarians was also taking place on the sidelines, also on how to save the environment. I'm Linda Akibe, and you're welcome to the Gavel. In the last few days, negotiators at the Paris Summit on Climate Change worked on an agreement to curb climate change. Now, as the negotiations were ongoing, parliamentarians from across the world also held talks on how the parliament can give much needed support in curbing climate change. Nigeria's Senate President joined other parliamentarians to discuss issues not only related to climate change, but also terrorism and humanitarian issues. As world leaders, non-government organizations and environmental activists gathered for the COP21 Climate Change Conference in Paris, parliamentarians from across the world also held a summit inside the French National Assembly complex. The summit had as its theme developments in national legislation on climate change, disaster, risk reduction, energy and sustainable development towards integrated national planning on the 2015 agenda. Senate President Bukola Saraki, while presiding over a session of a Globe COP21 Legislators Summit, urged his counterparts from across the world to become champions of a course for saving the environment in the various jurisdictions. He said legislators at the Globe Summit had a challenge to go back to their home countries and domesticate the issues raised. Speaking to journalists on the sidelines of the event, Senator Saraki said parliamentarians are better placed to lead a campaign through legislations and advocacy programs for the needed change of attitude, required investment and consistent attention necessary to reduce global warming and its dangerous consequences.
One of the major issues when you talk about climate change is money. All the parliaments at the end of the day are in charge of budgets in different countries. Two, when a lot of countries, head of governments come to these kind of conferences, they make commitments. How do you domesticate those commitments? And that is where the parliament comes through in law, in trying to see passing those. Some countries are ahead of us who have passed climate change laws. We haven't. At least we now have an adaptation policy, mitigation policy. And this is an area that we need to go back and try and learn from some of the examples that we've seen here, how Parliament must play their role in issue of financing, also in the issue of implementation, also to see that these agreements are not just talk. People come to these international conferences, they talk, and can't go back home and implement those understandings.
The President of the Inter-Parliamentary Union and the Senate President of the French Parliament speak on the role of parliaments in reducing global warming and the harmful effects of climate change.
We are the global community of parliamentarians. So as representatives of the people, we are there to ensure the welfare, the security, the safety and the prosperity of our people. And climate change threatens all of that. So it is the biggest risk that the world faces today. So we feel that as parliamentarians, we need to have our contribution. We bring the voice of the people to the discourse. And at the end of the day, we are hopeful that the outcome is going to benefit the people.
And we speak of new links between French Senate and Nigeria Senate. It's very important for us. I will start a certain number of initiatives in this sense.
Senator Saraki also used the event as an opportunity to call on the French government to be more decisive in supporting the war against terrorism, particularly the Boko Haram insurgency in the northeastern part of Nigeria and neighboring former French colonies in West Africa. He noted that France could intervene by sharing vital intelligence with Nigerian defense authorities and providing manpower as well as material support so that the insurgents will be overwhelmed and defeated in a short time.
As they say, one of the most dangerous terrorist organizations today is the Boko Haram. We in Nigeria have been losing a lot of lives as well, and that we are both victims, and as such, we must be seen to work very closely together and seeking that lives lost in Syria, in Lebanon, in France here, in Nigeria, in this world of today, should be treated as the same. They deserve the same kind of attention.
While commiserating with the French people on the recent terrorist attack in the country, Senator Saraki also solicited for the help of France in assisting the over 2 million internally displaced people in northeastern Nigeria. There's been much debate about the enforcement of a Treasury single account regime by the present administration. Some Nigerians have hailed the directive from the federal government that all ministries, departments and agencies pay all revenue and monies accruing to the federal government into a federal sub-treasury account maintained by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, the Senate, on the other hand, is concerned that there may be an abuse of the TSA regime. The concern was expressed when a federal lawmaker, Senator Dino Melaye, on December 11th, raised an alarm that the appointment of a private firm to collect government revenue from MDAs into the Treasury single account is a gross violation of Section 162, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution and the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act. Now, the Senate launched an investigation to get to the bottom of the allegations of the abuse of the Treasury Single Account Regime, TSA. This is an investigative hearing by the Senate Committees on Finance, Banking and Other Financial Institutions. The investigation is to get to the bottom of allegations of abuse of the Treasury Single Account Regime, TSA. A federal lawmaker on December 11th raised an alarm that the appointment of a private firm to collect government revenue from ministries, departments and agencies into the Treasury Single Account is a gross violation of Section 162, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution. Federal lawmakers disapproved of a 1% commission which the private firm was allegedly collecting to mop up the revenue.
In October 2011, the management of the CBN...
The CBN governor, in his presentation, disclosed how much has been collected into the Treasury single account so far.
We now have, as at the 8th of December 2015, a total of 2.038 trillion naira in the TSA, comprising 1.419 trillion remitted through the remitter platform. Since the commencement of the TSA e-collection segment, the sum of 7.6 billion was charged from the total of 836 billion collected as federal government receipts that were channeled through the remitter platform. However, based on the concern raised by stakeholders over this fee charged for the e-collection scheme, the management of the CBN directed that the total charges be returned to the respective MDAs, and this directive was immediately complied with by System Spec.
He also made an interesting observation as regards the 1% commission, which has been the bone of contention.
The truth was that I'd like to confess that I did not really know, because I have to say what I know. I did not know that a 1% charge, I'm talking of me now, I did not know there was a 1% charge that was being taken on that account until the Senate and House raised it when we were summoned to the office of the Senate President.
The Accountant General of the Federation completely disassociated himself from the contract signed with System Specs to provide the e-collection platform.
There is no MOU between Office of Accountant General of the Federation and CBN on either appointment of remitter, which is the issue being discussed now. What I know is when I came newly, I was confronted with a document to sign to do with appointment of remitter. And I said I will not sign till I know the nitty-gritties of the appointment and the terms. And to date, I have not signed that. So there is nothing like that.
What did you say was the document? What was the document about?
It was an agreement to do with appointment of remitter.
The managing director of System Specs, however, had a different version.
System Specs has a valid contract with CBN for the provision of the payment gateway that supports payment and collections of government revenue. The fees were discussed by all stakeholders, set by CBN and OAGF, communicated to all by the CBN and included in our contract. We did not charge above the agreed rates. On September 14, 2015, the OAGF had expressed concern at a project review meeting about the fees, considering the enlarged scope of the project. System Specs was not averse to price renegotiation. We wrote to the CBN that we are open to renegotiation and that at all stakeholders meeting be convened. 3 weeks later, on October 7, we wrote again that an all stakeholders meeting should be convened to review processing fees. 2 weeks later, on October 27, we were instructed by the CBN to refund all fees that have accrued to us in accordance with the contract. We strategically chose to comply within 24 hours of receipt of their letter, as we did not want to allow the issue of fees in the heat of the moment to becloud the work we have done in the delivery of TSA for Nigeria. While refunding our own portion of the fees as demanded by the CBN, however, we accompanied the refund with a fairly worded letter stating why the fees legitimately earned in line with our contract should be refunded to us.
The chairman of a joint committee, Senator John Eno, said the purpose of the investigation is not to witch hunt anyone, but to ensure that due process is followed in government transactions.